The propellant in flares, perchlorate, is soluble with water. It's a nasty substance that you don't want in water.
We're very concerned about perchlorate in the environment because of its ability to affect brain development in children, and that's an irreversible adverse health effect. It's very well known, the health effects of perchlorate impacts on the brain, and it's based on sound science. Perchlorate is a chemical. It's made up of chlorine and oxygen atoms. There are over 250 munitions that have perchlorate in them. NASA is also a large user of perchlorate, but it's also present in things such as fireworks and flares.
Sometimes flares are left on the ground. They're not completely burnt. And when it rains, basically the rain comes down, dissolves those compounds in the flare, and the rainwater infiltrates into the ground and then finally reaches the water table, which is the top of the aquifer. So minute quantities of a flare, of a discarded flare, can actually contaminate hundreds of thousands of gallons of groundwater.
It doesn't take much perchlorate to contaminate the water supply. We were the first state in the country to set a drinking water standard for perchlorate, and we believe that 2 parts per billion of perchlorate in drinking water or lower is safe and protective of public health. Now, when we talk about parts per billion, I know that sounds like a very small amount. It's sometimes associated with 1 drop of perchlorate in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. But we're only talking about 2 parts per billion or higher. That then is a risk for brain development in children.
Before we knew what the problem was with flares, before we knew that there was perchlorate in flares, these flares were being used indiscriminately for training practices. And it was only after we found out about the issue of perchlorate in the flares that we found some fairly significant contamination. Once contamination gets into the groundwater, it flows with the groundwater flow. So, contamination in one area here will flow to a well, and that's actually what happened in this one location. Public water supply well was impacted.
The water is being contaminated, some places very badly, and if the perchlorate flare continues to be used forever, then that's just going to increase the risk of perchlorate contamination to the water.
The proper way to dispose of flares is to bring them to a collection site. There are many collection sites in the Barnstable County. Most fire departments will accept them. Any questions, contact your local fire department or your local DPW, and they can tell you a proper collection site.
Well, you should be looking to a better alternative to the flares, and those would be new flare technologies that run by batteries. It's called LED lights. They're very powerful and strong and run on batteries, and they're environmentally safe and friendly and can be used to the same public safety level that's required.
Departments are saying we're not going to buy flares anymore. We're just going to buy the LED flare because it just makes so much more sense, especially here on Cape Cod.
We use a couple of different kinds here. It's a battery-operated LED flare. They come in several different colors. They're very easy to deploy. Many different manufacturers have them with different flash patterns. They're very cost-effective and environmentally safe.
Very simple. You would press this button here, and that activates the device, and then by pressing it again, it changes the pattern. So the pattern can be changed to adapt to the different situations that are out there. It's also very durable. It can handle the weather, cold, hot, rain. It also can be run over by a heavy vehicle. And it can be used with the traffic cones that already exist by helping to light them and give better warning.
We'll be off with the DMV, Higgins Grove, just north of the station.
The patrol officers look forward to this type of device because it's safer. One of our biggest concerns is the safety of the officer that's out on the street, whether it's 10 o'clock in the morning and it's bright sun, or it's 2 o'clock at night and there's impaired drivers on the road. And the Yarmouth Police are very proactive with traffic enforcement. We stop over 6,000 vehicles a year. We have a lot of crashes, unfortunately, and we're always using flares in the past. Something like this is safer for the police, it's safer for the public, and it's obviously safer for the environment.
Because these last about 100 hours, or we can get up to 100 hours of this, it's roughly 1/10 the cost of the traditional perchlorate flare.
The long-term cost effectiveness versus the flares is one thing, but the average cop on the street is concerned about safety, their own safety and the safety of the public. And when you can use an item like this that doesn't cause fires, that doesn't burn the officer's clothing or the officer themselves, that warns the public in advance that there's a danger in the road, that's a win-win for police officers.
I think what's important to know at this point is that the signals that we use, the approved signals that we have, the handheld flares, the rocket flares, and so forth, are all Coast Guard approved. This device is not yet Coast Guard approved. However, it can be used effectively to supplement the approved signals and would be a wise choice if you were looking for an alternative.
Boaters would benefit from having an LED flare, even if it's just one, because it will last them, it will always be usable, it's waterproof, it will not go out of date.
A flare lasts for about 45 seconds. The LED flares will last for many hours. They're new technology in that they're green devices. They provide an ample signal capability, and they do not damage the environment. They have capabilities for floating, light intensities, and they can be used in addition to the approved signals.
I'd like to appeal to all, the boating public, the public safety community, police and fire, to please start using one of the safer alternatives, like the LED power flare, the LED type displays. The more of the perchlorates that we can keep out of the environment, the better off our future will be.
I definitely would use these, and I like using these much better than the traditional flare. They're safer for the environment. We don't have to breathe the noxious fumes that we get when we ignite these. There's no chance of this little thing igniting any kind of fumes that are around from an MVC or things of that nature. Also, we're on Cape Cod. Everything we do affects the environment, and we're all drinking the water, so let's use these. They're safer and more cost effective.